Hello, welcome to Nebraska Lab, a channel dedicated to the home lab lifestyle. I am building videos to give you ideas for building your own home lab. Stuff you will see will model networks and domains that you will see in a production environment, but something that we can test and play with. One thing to note about these videos is unless I say otherwise, these videos should not be used to build a production environment. They are strictly lab videos. I'm not an expert by any means, so if you know a better way, leave a comment on how you would do it. In this video, I'm going to be setting up a PfSense router. PfSense is an open source router that can be run on physical hardware and virtual. Today, we're going to set up a virtual appliance. Now, I have another home lab. It's apart from the one I'll be building for this channel. And there I use both physical and virtual instances of PfSense. The physical I use on a Netgate appliance, and the virtual is on ESX, where I use to handle the routing of my VMs. I will be using VMware Workstation for now, but eventually I plan on migrating this lab to a nested ESX environment in my main lab. I may dabble with other hypervisors on this channel, but my main focus right now is VMware. Here you will see the plans for this channel as of right now. The virtual machine we're going to be building today is a router, so I created a name schema that includes router in it. You will see at the top that I plan on using NE-lab RTR01V. I haven't really given an IP address yet, but usually I go with .1 at the end. And if we skip down to the bottom, you'll see that NE is for Nebraska. Lab is just a unique name that gives these series of virtual machines something in common. RTR is the router, and 01 would be the first router, with V at the end being a virtual router. If this was physical, I'd change the V to a P. As you can see, I plan on having many different networks. The one we're going to focus on right now is the management network, which is 10.10.0.0 network. We will be using a 24-bit subnet mask. Here you can see the PfSense website. It shows different ways to use their products, which include physical appliances, cloud appliances, and even some support. At the top we have a few good links. We have a Getting Started link, which takes you to some very detailed documentation. I highly recommend going there and checking it out. On the right, we have a download link. When I click that, you can download the latest release of PfSense. As of 2019, or to say September of 2019, the current version is 2.4.4 and it's a P3. One thing to keep in mind is the architecture. If you're going to run this as a virtual machine, you're probably going to want AMD 64. If you have one of the Netgate appliances that uses ADI, you can click there. Then select your mirror. Here being in Nebraska, it's kind of between Texas and New York City, but I'd be closer to Texas. If you're in Germany or somewhere over in Europe, you can click on Germany, and then you have Singapore as another mirror. Once you click that, you can click on download, and it will take you to the downloads links. From here, you can find a release. I would, and actually I forgot to select an architecture, so that's why I was given that page. So if I click on AMD, it actually presents you with different options. So you can install it to a memory stick, an ISO, and of course you can't select embedded with this architecture. For this example, we're going to use ISO installer. Now you can see the mirror I told you about for Texas is what I'm going to use. And if I were to click on download, it would download PfSense. I already have a copy of PfSense downloaded, even though it doesn't take too long to download. It comes in a .gz, so you're going to want to extract that. And then once I extract it, you'll see a .iso file. That's what we're going to be using. So here I have my instance of VMware Workstation. I'm going to start by first creating my networks. So that way when I create the virtual machine, I can breeze through that process. So in VMware Workstation, I just go to Edit, Virtual Network Editor, and then I must click on Change Settings to get everything. And from here, we can add a new network. I'm gonna choose VMNet2 for right now. And it will give its own subnet. But I'm gonna change it because as you recall from my other screen here, I plan on using a 10.10.0.0 network. So I am going to go back to the editor, click on my VMNet, and make sure it says host only for right now. And we're going to make sure it has a physical adapter connected to this computer I'm on. For right now, we're going to turn off DHCP, change the subnet to 10.10.0.0 network, and leave the subnet mask as it is, and then click apply. It's going to go through and change the network. And just so it's easier for me to find later, I'm going to rename the network and say Nebraska Lab Management Network. Click OK. As you can see, it renamed it. Click apply. And then OK. Let me bring back up VMware Workstation there. And let's go ahead and create a new virtual machine. I prefer using custom, but if you feel better off using the typical easy setup, you can go up here to typical. I'm going to click next, leave it at 15. I'm going to click install later, and we must change this to other and FreeBSD 11, as PfSense is based on FreeBSD. And now we can give it a name. So as you also recall, the name is going to be AnyLab RTR01V. Let's go ahead and put that there. And I have a folder that I want to put this in. So let's go ahead and put the folder that I want to put it in right there. Click next. And let's give it 2 cores. So total of 2 vCPUs. And click next. And let's go ahead and give it 4 gigs of RAM for right now. We can change this later. Click next. And for right now, I'm going to say do not use a network connection. Click next. Default to LSI logic, SCSI, and let's go ahead and give it a virtual disk. 20 should be fine. We're not going to allocate the disk right now. Click on next. And the default file name is fine, so let's click on next and finish. Now you can see I created a folder for my Nebraska lab content, so I'm gonna put it up there. And in fact, I want to go one further level. I'm gonna put routers and drag that there. Close these extra windows here. And let's click on edit for right now so we can edit further settings. So we have 4 gigs of RAM, 2 vCPUs, and we're going to make sure we have 20 gigs of space, which is fine. The disk, let's go ahead and attach that ISO that we had in the other screen. So I'm going to copy, actually, let's give it one more. There we go. The full path for the ISO. And I'm going to put it right there. USB, that's fine. We don't need a sound card, so I'm just going to remove that sound card. And as you can see, since we selected no network, it has no network. So we're going to go ahead and add a network adapter. And this one's going to be our WAN. So let's go ahead and keep it at NAT for right now. We shouldn't have to modify any other settings. So let's click add and do another network adapter. And for now, number 2 is going to be on the one we just created. So let's go custom Nebraska Lab Management Network. Click out of it. There we go. Now it's updated. And this is a very basic way of doing it. We're going to create a new network adapter for each LAN that we want to use. Eventually, we're going to want to use VLANs, and we can merge it into a few adapters instead of creating a new network adapter for each network that we're going to use. I'm going to click OK. And we must make a modification first. I am going to close this by right-clicking and clicking remove. This will not delete it, so we're just going to remove it for right now. We're going to go to the folder this is stored in and find the virtual machine configuration file, which is highlighted right there. I'm going to right-click and go ahead and edit. And one thing that is good to change is under Ethernet 0 virtual dev, same thing for Ethernet 1, this E1000 we're going to want to change. And let's go ahead and change it to VMX Net 3. Same thing for the other one. Go up here and click on Save. We're going to close that. And let's go back to VMware Workstation and then let's go ahead and browse to our router virtual machine and re-add it. I'm going to bring it back up here to routers. And what we did is we changed it from the E1000, which is a slower and older network adapter type, which is basically kind of what you would get by default in a physical workstation, for example, or a server. And we changed it to VMX Net 3, which is the newer 10 gig network adapter. Let's go ahead and power this on. And it will give us some options. It will boot by default. Unfortunately, since I am using a larger DPI monitor, I'm going to have to make some modifications here to the window size. So I'm going to drag that bigger, and I'm going to go to stretch the guest and keep aspect ratio. There we go. Go ahead and accept the notice there. And we're going to go ahead and install PfSense. And I'm going to continue with the default key map. You can change it if you have a different type of keyboard, for example. And just go ahead and keep it at auto for partitioning. It will go through the install process. And now it's finished. It's asking right now if we want to open a shell to make any modifications. For example, if you want to restore a previous configuration file, I'm just going to say no. Press enter and reboot. We can also go down here and click I finished installing. It's going to change my screen around again, so I'm going to make it bigger. There we go. And now it's booting PfSense. And now we're presented with this screen here. As you can see, both of our links are up right now. And it gives us the MAC addresses of both of them right there. It does say it's down now, so this can be a little confusing. And right now we're not going to do VLANs, so I'm going to say no. Now it's saying, which one of these links do we want to make the WAN? Now if you don't know which adapters which, usually they go in order, but one way you can check is by going to the VMware VMs settings, go to the network adapter we said NAT was going to be the WAN. I'm going to click on advanced, and AA MAC address is the WAN, which is VMX0. So WAN, we're going to do VMX0, press enter, and it's saying what do we want to make for the LAN. I'm going to put VMX1. If you do not have a LAN and you disable it at some point, it will disable routing and turn us into an appliance. So we use VMX1 for the LAN, and we want to proceed by pressing Y and then enter. And now it's going to configure the router. Now we're presented with this screen. It shows us our DHCP for the WAN, which is actually on my production network, I can call it, my home network. And it's in the 192.168 range, 211.128. We're not going to pay attention to that for right now. And the LAN, it gave its own IP address. Now recall that I plan on using a different network IP address. So we're going to make sure we change that by pressing 2 to set the IP address, and 2 again for the LAN interface. IP address is going to be 10.10.0.1 is what I'm going to set it to. And then we're going to get the bit count to 24, which is 255, 255, 255, and 0. And we're not going to give it another gateway for the LAN, so press enter. We're not going to do IP version 6 for right now. And we're going to leave off DHCP server for right now. So I'm going to put no. And we're not going to revert any web configuration settings right now, so we're going to press no. And now it's telling us to go to 10.10.0.1 to continue. I'm going to press enter. And now I'm going to switch to my web browser and go to 10.10.0.1. Now one thing I did mess up on, and I'm going to have to go back and change, is this is actually the IIS for my local machine. I'm not sure why it's enabled. I will have to check that at a different point. But we will have an IP conflict because If you recall, when I went to the network adapter and created one for this computer, it will actually give the network the same IP address, the .1. Let's see if it shows it here. Click on the network there, and it will not show it here, but it does show us the VMware Network Adapter VMNet 2. So I'm going to go to my computer, and let me bring on the screen for VMNet 2, which is the same adapter. I'm going to go to version 4, and there you can see it's .1. I'm going to change this to be .50 for right now, and press OK. OK. I'm going to cancel this, and let's go back to our web browser and try refreshing. It is now going to PfSense. I'm going to go ahead and allow the security warning, and there we go. I'm going to enter the default username as admin and the password as PfSense for PfSense. And you will get a warning saying the password is a default. We are going to change that in a minute. Let's go ahead and walk through the settings of Next. It's talking about their support. We're going to click Next. Let's go ahead and give this the same name that we are going to name this virtual machine. That name is going to be the Any Lab portion. So I'm going to paste that there. Go ahead and give a domain network that you want to put this on for DNS wise. And I am going to do lab.nebraskalab.net for my domain. For DNS, for the time being, I'm going to give it a public DNS. I'm going to use 1.1.1.1 and 1.0.0.1. In case you're not familiar with what that is, if I go to Google here and I type 1.1.1.1 DNS, you will see it's Cloudflare. I click on here, and it'll give information about 1.1.1.1 in case you're curious about why I'm using that. Or you can just go to 1.1.1.1 as the website, and it will give you more information about Cloudflare DNS. Back over here, I'm going to click on Next. Leave the time server alone. I am going to change this to, I'm going to go to America, Chicago, since I am Central Time. I'm going to click on Next. And the WAN interface we're going to leave as DHCP. If you have a static IP address for your lab, for example, if you're connecting this to another network on your home network, you can go to static IP address and put in the details. Or if you're hooking this directly up to the internet and you want to give it a static IP address, which I do not recommend hooking this straight up to the internet, I would recommend creating a couple layers between your lab and the internet. We're going to go here to Next by accepting the defaults. And one thing to note is you may have to change the RFC 1918 block if you want your external network to connect back inwards. Since I am using a 192 as my external, which is my home network, I am going to uncheck this. Again, if you're on a public network, you're not going to want to uncheck that. Let's click on Next and verify our IP settings. I'm going to click on Next, and that's our LAN. And let's go ahead and give it a password. And click on Next. And when you're ready, click on Reload to save the changes. And there we go. Click on Finish, and you will see your new router. I personally love PfSense. It has a great feel to it. It has a lot of features, probably more than you ever dive into. And you can see it's not full of graphs by default. It has some work. You can change the layout to however you want. So if I want to move this up here, or if I don't care about their support, I can get rid of this right there. Um, it does have other options if you want to add like your interfaces, which is right there, your gateways, if you want to view your gateways right there, um, VPN. It has a lot of options. I'd recommend checking this out. And as you can see, if I go, actually let's get rid of that. Up here you have a lot of different settings you can change on this. Probably more than you're used to on your normal home router. If you're not using enterprise grade routers or if you're new to HomeLab life. In a different video, I will explain how to set this up even further, and eventually I will change this to have VLAN support. We will go further on and set up a whole domain network. I plan on next talking about ESX, creating a vCenter, and moving all this so it integrates with each other. Hope you enjoy this video, and let me know if you have anything you would do differently, how you like this, or if you just want to talk.